I don't see any possibility of meaningful negotiation with the Islamic State. I think the Islamic State in its present form, as a caliphate to dominate the region, and indeed any area where Muslims are living, that's incompatible with the international order as we see it. But I can conceive and expect a negotiation taking place between many of the parties in the region to try to create an international order there, minus the Islamic State, that will be more compatible with peace than we've had.
So what is the solution for destroying IS?
During the Second World War, nobody said, what is the solution of dealing with Hitler? And this is an organization that has engaged in mass murder on television, in the killing of prisoners, and so I do not think that the Islamic State, as it exists, is a group with which we can negotiate. But there are many other groups in the region with which we should negotiate and will negotiate.
Is Europe doing enough to fight terrorism?
The challenge for Europe is the difficulty of governments, and there's a difference between them, of asking their people for sacrifices. So, in an abstract sense, none of us have done enough because that group is still there, and there is still not a coherent strategy in which you can describe what the outcome will be. That's a challenge for us. It's also a challenge for Europe, because it should not be conceived as Europe associating itself with an American effort. It should not be an American effort. It should be an Atlantic effort, a more general effort.
Last year, 1 million refugees and migrants entered Europe. Is that free flow a positive thing, or should Europe close its borders?
The first issue is, it has very rarely happened in history that a region opened its borders and was then not individuals come in, but basically whole peoples come in. That is a fundamental change.
A good change?
Well, it is a good change from the point of view of humanitarian values. So if one looks at each individual case, it is of great benefit, and I have enormous respect for Angela Merkel. On the other hand, one has also to understand that when a population comes in with a totally different religion, a totally different concept of legitimate arrangements, that this is going to create problems at a minimum of adjustment.
There will be a referendum in the UK, as I'm sure you're aware. Should the UK stay in the EU?
So many of my British friends have such passionate feelings on both sides of the issue.
What's your feeling?
My feeling is UK should be in Europe in the present form, but I'd like also UK to continue some of its special role based on its own experiences. And so I hope that something will be worked out.
US politics, obviously we are in 2016, finally. That finish line is just about visible. We've had this wave of anger at the establishment. People are angry at politicians, so that potentially creates the possibility of a non-politician being in the White House. It creates the possibility of Donald Trump being in the White House. Is that a dangerous move?
This is an individual who declares himself who nobody previously had considered to be a presidential candidate, who by the force of, one has to admit, its personality, it's evoking something that most people didn't know was there in this magnitude.
Do you see him as a real contender?
If you had asked me 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have said no, that something in the system will produce a combination that, but the enthusiasm for him has not diminished. It has. He may not have enough to get the nomination, but it's not obvious yet.
North Korea claimed to have tested a hydrogen bomb. Sanctions haven't worked so far. Do you think the next president should be preparing to sit down with the North Korean leader?
I think the possession of weapons of mass destruction in North Korea, on top of the cyber capabilities that exist, on top of what may come down the road in artificial intelligence, it really imposes a need on the surrounding countries to try to see whether this can be ended. I have believed that a dialogue that involves China, U.S., Japan, probably Russia and South Korea in some fashion should be the beginning. That a sitting down of the president with the North Korean leader, given the record of negotiations, I do not think it's the best way to proceed.